A family of 12 was without a home this evening, and a firefighter had a close call after a fire breaks out in a Marlin home. Good evening and welcome to the Texas Report. I'm reporter Rachael Wilson. An oxygen tank exploded, blowing out one of the walls in a home after a fire with a firefighter inside. But thankfully, the firefighter is okay. The fire broke out around 1 o'clock this afternoon. It took firefighters more than 3 hours to put out the flames.
When you have a large structure like this, of course, there was a roof collapse. It tends to trap a lot of hidden fire, and it's very difficult to access. Of course, the high winds today did have a negative effect on firefighting efforts, but we were able to compensate.
4 people were inside the home when the fire started, but they were able to get out safely. A new drug study could offer hope for some breast cancer patients. Roche released a study showing Perjeta, when added to 2 current breast cancer drugs, helped women live 6 months longer on average. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention claim that birth defects in children are on the rise. But there are many causes for birth defects in babies, such as a mother's abuse of alcohol, her use of prescription drugs, and many others. But then again, there's not always a reason behind the cause. In the U.S. versus Paul Segalia case today, the judge decided to postpone the hearing until May 2015. Even though Segalia wasn't able to join us in court, his lawyers were able to phone him in. After the case, we did hear from his lawyer, and he had this to say. Gas prices always influence people's spending, especially when it comes to travel. So this year, with gas prices being lower, let's see who's traveling a little bit more than normal. Apple fans, listen up. On Tuesday, September 9th, Apple will be unveiling its new, much hyped about iPhone 6. Student loan debt climbing to a new high according to Experian. Students are holding $1.2 trillion in loans, an 84% increase since the Great Recession. Experian says 40 million customers now have at least one student loan. Some college students are getting more than their bikes stolen. Police say when money gets tight on campus, people do some strange things.
The guy took my stuff, dumped out my books behind the dumpster, and took my computer and backpack.
Freshman Daquan Williams was the latest victim on Baylor's campus with what police call a crime of opportunity. He left his backpack in the Penland food court on April 23rd and reported it missing after he couldn't find it in the cubbies by the entrance the next morning. Baylor police say this is the time of year they receive the most reports of these thefts. Students leave their belongings unattended in the library for minutes and even hours. Authorities caution leaving anything unattended in public places, and they say always take your high pricey items when you leave. The United States' first diagnosed Ebola patient is dead. Thomas Duncan died this morning at 7:51 after fighting the disease for more than a week. Duncan arrived at a Dallas hospital on September 26th, but was not diagnosed with the disease until the 28th. Walmart shoppers will soon be able to do their banking at their local store. The nation's largest retailer is teaming up with Green Dot Corporation to provide customers with a low-cost alternative to traditional bank checking accounts. The company says it's planning to have a nationwide rollout in October. In the U.S. versus Paul Segalia case today, the judge decided to postpone the hearing until May 2015. Even though Segalia wasn't able to join us in court, his lawyers were able to phone him in. After the case, we did hear from his lawyer, and he had this to say.
If 2 neighbors enter an agreement to have an easement, you're my neighbor, and I give you part of my land and you erect a fence and then claim it as your own, I have a right to sue you.
With a bubbly and vivacious personality, you wouldn't think twice when you pass her in the street, unless you saw her right side. 18-year-old Natalia Rubio was born without her right arm.
I was born without an arm. It happened in the womb somehow.
Just like everybody else, she ties her shoes, goes to class, and lives her life like any other student.
There's just certain things that I had to do differently than other people. I never let it stop me. Until I've tried it, I'm not going to say I can't do it.
She used a prosthetic arm until she came to college.
My prosthetic arm looks real, so some people didn't know. And so I had moments where they would discover it. You know, I had even teachers, they didn't know, and it was just really weird. And they're just like, what are you talking about? I've known you for like 3 years. Like, that's not true. And I'm just like, no, no, it is.
Through the years, she's learned how to deal with those awkward moments. She keeps a smile on her face and helps the other person see this is not a problem.
I never wanted to make other people feel uncomfortable, you know, and other people didn't want to make me feel uncomfortable.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention claim that birth defects in children are on the rise. But there are many causes for birth defects in babies, such as a mother's abuse of alcohol, her use of prescription drugs, and many others. But then again, there's not always a reason behind the cause. Natalia's doctors aren't exactly sure what caused Natalia's arm to be lost, but for Natalia, it's just a part of life.
It's one of those things where you just kind of have to adjust to, you know, because most things, I mean, I can do pretty much everything.
For News Channel 25, I'm Rachael Wilson.